Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I am so glad you guys are here. I love starting my week off with all of you. Today's guest is someone who brings both professional expertise and her own lived experience to the conversation, all around healing. Cindy Fortuna is a registered holistic nutritionist who specializes in supporting individuals navigating and recovering from cancer. After facing her own cancer diagnosis, she has made it her mission to empower others through practical, compassionate tools around nourishment and wellness, without all of the overwhelm. From boosting energy to supporting immunity, Cindy takes a gentle, holistic approach to care that truly meets people where they are. You're going to want to take notes during this episode. This is a conversation full of heart, healing, and hope, and may actually make you a little hungry because we're going to go deep into talking about food.
Protein, the healthy fats, and the fiber. That combination is super important. And most of what I've talked about are foods to reduce inflammation as well. So that's why they're such a big part. The high fiber, the whole grains, the omega-3s, the probiotics, the antioxidants, these are all anti-inflammatory.
Welcome to the conversation. I want to share a little bit about myself before we turn things over to Cindy and get into some of the Q&A. But some of you know that I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 34, and I was a strict vegan leading up to that diagnosis. I was very healthy. I never had, like many of us, we never had major health issues or problems. And so to find my own lump and have to advocate to get a mammogram and to find out I had breast cancer was very shocking. And I was really upset at myself, for example. I felt like my body, was betraying me. I was eating the kale and all the healthy vegetables and avoiding the processed foods, and I still got cancer. And so I share that story to say that cancer does not discriminate. There is nothing that we have done that is our fault. And it took me a very long time to kind of come full circle. And I'll say like even 8 years out from my diagnosis, now just coming back into terms of what food does my body actually need? What's my body trying to tell me? And I will say I'm no longer a vegan. I kind of eat a very different diet, which I'm sure we can talk about a little bit today too. But I want to give that context because I think sometimes when we're diagnosed with cancer, we are always like, what did I do? Something is at fault here. And I just want to reassure everyone, no one is at fault. Cancer is sneaky and terrible, and we need to work hard to eliminate it. But, when we can take control of an uncontrollable situation, I think turning to diet and nutrition and seeing food as a complement to our medicine is really helpful and gives us some sort of agency in a time of such uncertainty. So with that as my background, Cindy, I would love for you to introduce yourself, your background, where you're calling in from today, and we'll go from there.
I guess maybe what I'll do is start with how I got into this side of the business and also my personal journey in terms of my health. I used to be in the corporate world. I was an HR person, and back in about 2015 decided to chuck that all out, sell everything in Canada. And my partner and I went to St. Martin and bought a 46-foot catamaran and ran a term charter business.
No way. Wait, yeah. That is so cool. That is so amazing.
It was a bit of a crazy, gutsy sort of story, but we loved the life down there and we have no regrets over doing that. Now, in the middle of that, I had my cancer diagnosis. I was diagnosed in 2018 with primary central nervous system lymphoma, which is an aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The diagnosis was very scary, as it always is, but in particular, at that time, it was a fairly rare form of that type of cancer. And the doctors, kind of gave me a really grim sort of outlook on what the treatment protocol would be. Now, fortunately, almost on a minutely basis, there were being advancements in the treatment, and I was aggressively dropped into a program at Jaravinsky Cancer Center where they put me on a very high dose chemo round. I had 5 rounds over a period of about, 4 rounds over a period of about 5 months. And then I had one more high dose therapy to prepare me for a stem cell transplant. So 5 months in, we did that, and I did have a full stem cell transplant. That's an interesting experience in itself. But at that point, things were looking good. There was still some cancer cell activity in the vitreous fluid of my eyes, which is where it was originally found. Yeah, and that was the rare part. And they decided to do a round of radiation directly to my eyes as well in the fall of the following year. So yeah, that was a also very interesting experience. And that was just that had to happen, or it didn't have to. I was given the choice, but I decided, you know what, let's finish this off properly. And so we did that, and that was 2019. And I go now for my yearly checkups, my MRI, because this type of cancer can be found in the brain or the spinal column fluid. My eyes are reviewed frequently with my ophthalmologist, and they just keep a really close eye. Everything looks good, but it's obviously something that they want to make certain that they keep tabs on. So I went through the nastiness of chemotherapy, the stem cell transplant. Those of you who've gone through it don't need to hear how debilitating and how hard that is on your system. So that brought me to deciding to go into holistic nutrition.
So I would just love to like ask you, like, what does that entail? If you don't mind going into a little bit of like
No,
detail.
not at all. And I'm not a highly technical person, so I won't do it justice in terms of what the
No, but like
process
what does that mean and like what was the process like for you? Especially as we have like listeners too who might have other types of cancer and they're like, okay, what how do I prepare for this? What do I have what is
yeah,
it? What does it mean?
you're right. So you're after the actual blasting of your immune system. So basically, what they're doing with the really intense dose beforehand is killing everything. So your garden is ground zero, bare. You are right down to the nothingness of your immune system.
And was that
And
through the chemotherapy or was
yeah,
that
yeah, that
okay.
that was for the progressive chemotherapy, but then one particularly very, very high dose prior to the stem cell transplant that just absolutely blasts it before they do the stem cell transplant. Now, prior to that, sorry, I skipped a part. During the 5 rounds or 4 rounds of chemotherapy, they have to collect my, so I was a self donor. So there are two types. I don't know the technical names, but some people, as you've probably heard in certain cases, have to find a match in terms of their stem cell and or stem cells. I could self donate, which was great news because what they did is they hooked me up to this very interesting contraption for about 5 hours, and it drew my blood out, removed the stem cells, and then they freeze them in these little vacuum packed bags and put them away for a few months later when they will re-inject them into my system. So I had to go through that a couple times because the stem cells don't always cooperate. They hope to be able to harvest them at a very high quantity, and they need a certain sort of minimum amount. So I had to go through 2 rounds of that, and then a couple of months later, to re-inject the stem cells, it's literally a half an hour procedure. And it's extremely. There are about 10 people standing around, somebody with a little contraption to inject them into the IV, and they shove them back into your system in half an hour. That was an interesting sort of thing because I wasn't really ill, but you don't really feel great for some time. It's a real shock to your system when you're having some sort of blast of that sort of thing injected in so aggressively. And then I was in isolation for two weeks, 2+ weeks, because until your blood cells start to recover and have your immunity back at a level that is acceptable, I was basically on lockdown while that happened.
I if you're watching this video, I'm kind of in shock. I don't know how to respond because thank you for sharing that. And I can't imagine as I'm hearing you describe this and a little bit about my experience too. I remember being in the infusion center for hours on end. I think my longest was 8 hours, was like one of the first infusions I had, and they had to do it incredibly slow to check if there was going to be any reactions. And so I remember joking, like, I'm closing down the infusion center. I remember, like, in my 20s, like, closing down the bars, but like never closing down the infusion center. And then as you're describing like these machines, for me, it was almost like this out of body experience. I was like, okay, this is happening to me, but very objectively, I was like, this is so cool. Like, what's happening here? Did you know this happens? And so it was like very, I don't know, interesting, 'cause my background's obviously not in science or biology. So to see all of these things happen to my body was I don't know. There was like this moment of like, did you know you lose your nose hairs too? Everyone thinks that like you lose just the hair on your head, but I'm like, I lost my nose hair, so I had this like constant runny nose. I lost my eyebrows, so I looked like an alien, and then I started to lose my eyelashes. And I think it was the eyelashes that really upset me, because I was like, even babies are born with eyelashes. Like, babies might come out bald, but they're born with eyelashes. And I just remember like all the dust and the particles. Like, I was just like a hot mess during my chemotherapy. But it was also like super fascinating to like realize that like the hair on your arms or like on your body like really play an important role. And there's a reason why we have it. So thank you for sharing that with me. And we think also a lot about um, the mental piece of a cancer diagnosis. And so, do you mind if I like pick your brain a little bit? Like, after everything that you've gone through, processing the fact that you had this cancer diagnosis, you just went through a stem cell transplant, and then they put you in isolation. I mean, I understand why they have to do that, but gosh, I mean, how did you manage through that?
I often reflect back on that and think in the moment I don't actually know how I did. I'm a very pragmatic person, and my friends and family will tell you that. And when I have a task or something that needs to be done, I just get a very sort of single-minded mindset, and I just in the moment I just did what I had to do. And I have to say the support was fantastic at Juravinski Cancer Center. I could have some people come in to see me. I just couldn't have a parade of people coming through. And it was prior to COVID, thank goodness, because I think things are probably quite a bit different now, or were during that for sure. So it was, in my mind, it was a temporary hardship that I had to get through. And it was only a few weeks. I mean, on the heels of months and months and months of other treatment. But I just put my head down and said, you know what, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And there was.
Let's take a quick break. We will be right back.
Are you ready to unlock your full potential? I want to introduce you to the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, a powerful resource to transform your life today. With expert interviews, practical tips, and inspiring stories, this podcast is your roadmap to lasting wellness. Here's what a listener has to say.
I used to struggle with my health, but this podcast changed everything. It's like having a personal trainer, nutritionist, and life coach totally for free.
With over 2,000 five-star reviews, we're a podcast you can trust. The Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
It's amazing what we are able to endure and the power of the mind to get us through some of these most difficult, darkest times. Okay, so very intense background. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now this has led to kind of like a career shift.
Yes. And I've always been, even in my late teens, early 20s, a very healthy eater, a fitness advocate. I was always interested in, not the latest fads and trends, but just what, certain holistic approaches to eating were. And so that was always a personal interest that I spent a lot of time researching and learning about. So it made sense to me. I thought, let's make this official. I've retired my corporate career. We've sold our boat business. I'm still a young woman. I need to do something, and it needs to be something that interests me. And the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition they have a couple of programs, but this one in particular was a distance learning program, which worked really well for me. And you have 2 years to complete it, basically. So I just put my head down and hit the books, and it was so interesting for me. And I met lots of people in that community to sort of help me through. And it made sense for me then to turn this knowledge into helping people who have been through what I've been through. So my target focus is people who have gone through cancer, either going through it or have gone through at any point, maybe years ago. And I also focus on women over the age of 40 because I'm one of those too. And there are lots of perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause issues. So those are my two sort of target groups who I like to work with.
So you're able to kind of target this particular population and then use the knowledge that you've gained through this like nutrition and new credential to be able to like help and coach and support these women that you work with.
Yes, and I do take a holistic approach. Nutrition is a big part of it, but I think you mentioned, I'm not sure if you mentioned this or how this came up, but stress management is monumental in our health in general, but keeping our immune system healthy. Um, I feel like, oh, I think what it was is when you were talking about it, it's not your fault. We can't change things. Stress is such a huge factor in illness and cancer in particular. So I look at lifestyle practices and stress management and other things to complement what you're putting into your body nutritionally.
That sounds so true. There was a period of time, like a recovering stressaholic. I don't know like what to call it, but I remember just operating like my stress was just like always like at the top. Like, and I don't know if that was, I mean, in retrospect, I definitely think it was a bad thing, but I didn't know any different. It was just, A type, doing 100 things at the same time, having to get everything done, loving my job, but working all the time. And really just like go, 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 and not realizing how unhealthy that was.
Mhm.
And my diagnosis literally stopped me in my tracks. I remember finding out that I had cancer and this exercise of needing to cancel every single appointment that I had that month and that like leading out in the next like quarter was like devastating to cancel like toxic conferences, leading international trips abroad with some of my students that I worked with. But like, I just remember going through my calendar and having to like cancel everything to the point where like there was nothing on my calendar except doctor's appointments. But it was that realization of that exercise that I was like, literally, cancer was like, Laura, you need to stop and you need to reevaluate. And that was a huge wake up call for me.
You're right. So many people, I think it's still the same, unfortunately. People in the workforce, people going through school, with families, without families, socially, are so busy all the time. And people do think it's normal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like if you're not busy, like what's wrong with you?
I still really struggle with keeping my anxiety. I mean, as any of you in this situation are aware, you always have this thing lurking in your background of what if, what if, what if. So I have to work really hard, and I work with people on that too, to just incorporate things into your lifestyle to bring that level of anxiety and stress, give you tools to deal with when those little nasty thoughts pop up or that little nasty person on your shoulder is like, what about this? So it is a challenge constantly. I don't, it doesn't ever go away for me. I'm always having to manage that.
My husband is so funny. He'll just be like, "So what? Who cares?" I'm like, "I do," but he like in a jokingly way helps me diminish the stress that I
Mhm.
can't control.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And you have to do that. It's great you have someone there to help you do that.
Oh, I'm so lucky. Absolutely. Otherwise, I'd have post-it notes and mantras all over my bathroom windows.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into some of like the nutrition questions. That's like really why we're here. But I'm just so fascinated with your background and your story and what you're able to bring to our community. So first, thank you for all of that. So where should we dive in first? I'll kind of take your lead in terms of like your expertise and how we could use nutrition as one element of that overall well-being that you were describing.
What I can do is sort of give an overview on how to support immunity. And it's a very basic. This isn't rocket science, I always say, but not everybody thinks about this or talks about this. And whole foods is a very big part of that. And it seems like a simple concept, but what you want to do is you're maintaining a healthy digestive and intestinal system because that's the foundation of your immune system. So you want to ensure that your gut is healthy, basically. And 70 to 80% of your immune system um, actually resides in the gut. So that's why it's so very, very important. So whole foods, what does that mean? Um, they're basically foods that are as natural a state as possible. So obviously not processed or refined or artificial items. You want nutrient dense foods. Um, what are those foods? Well, I can go through the list if you'd like. It's kind of just a good overview of what whole foods means. Whole vegetables and fruits, obviously, that's a biggie. And particularly, it's been mentioned for breast cancer, cruciferous vegetables. And I'm going to say most of what I'm going to say here will apply to your general health, but it becomes particularly important with an illness like cancer. So cruciferous vegetables, those are a core part of my diet, and I eat so many raw vegetables and juice, and I am a pretty big believer in that. It's a lot of work if you don't want to juice, but you can just make sure that you incorporate the raw vegetables and the cooked vegetables into your daily environment, and that's super, super important.
You brought that up, if I can interrupt your flow real quickly, because when I finished chemo, so you mentioned that you had 5 months of chemo. I had about 6 months of chemo. Again, some of it were, one round every 3 weeks. Some were just weekly, etc. But I remember at my last chemo day, I remember going to one of the stores and gifting myself a juicer. And I got one of the really expensive ones, but I was I'm just so excited. I deserve this. This is my reward. And totally got excited about juicing. I think there was a point also, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but we had the fancy Vitamix for the smoothies. And then we had, I think, one of the juicers. And then I started learning about the different types of juicers that could have the centrifugal force versus the other one, which I'm blanking on the name. But I was which one do I need? Which one is going to be the most, give me the most nutrients? And I love, as you're explaining too, having a smoothie or having the whole food, but also having the juice, each kind of serve their own unique purpose. So it's not eliminating one or the other, but I think the combination of both, getting the pulp and the skin, as well as the juice, is really important.
I came to that realization too. I think, you kind of go hog wild on the juicing. And then I thought, oh, wait a second, I'm missing some of the good stuff. So I kind of ratcheted it back a little bit and did more of a balance. But I'm with you. I will tell you a funny story because I live a rather transient lifestyle. I live sort of in 3 locations for personal reasons, partly because I like one, but my kids are spread around the country. So I do spend time. And there are some fairly important parts of my entourage that I take with me. And one of them is my juicer.
I love that. Amazing. Yes. What's going to make you happy and comfortable? Absolutely.
Wherever I'm staying, I've got the juicer in the trunk of my car just waiting to come in, and wherever I'm living. So yeah, I can identify with that. And it sounds like you can too. So the fruits and vegetables are an obvious one. Whole grains are another good one. And, there's a lot of controversy out there around whether to have gluten, no gluten, depends on your personal body makeup. But if you can tolerate whole grains, I think it's good to include those. Legumes, lentils, beans, all of those things have so many of the vitamins and nutrients that your body needs. Whether you eat meat or not, there certainly should be a part of your protocol. Nuts and seeds are great for the essential fatty acids, and they're just an easy, healthy thing to snack on. In my menu plans, that's often a part of the makeup. A lot of people don't want to spend a lot of time preparing their food. Nuts and seeds are just so easy and healthy. They're not always inexpensive, unfortunately, but my philosophy is I'm willing to invest in my health. And if you are, then those are the things that you should be investing in. The healthy fats, so the nuts, seeds, again, the fatty fish, if you're into seafood. And if you're going to have animal products, which I do, just the lean meats and the hormone-free and, raised without antibiotics, that sort of thing. Again, more expensive to go that route. But in my mind, if your health is worth it, then that's a good place to put my disposable income. Fermented foods is another one. And there aren't as many to choose from, but if you can get just some basics, yogurt, kefir in your smoothies instead of milk, there are ways to incorporate that into the environment or into your diet without a lot of trouble and not hard to find stuff. There's a lot of good healthy herbs and spices too. I could probably do a whole seminar, or a nutritionist could, on that, the benefits of things like turmeric and cinnamon, and yeah, just so many. And you can throw them into a smoothie. You can throw them into your veggie stir fries. You can throw them into almost anything. So having a good education on what the spices and herbs are to help you is kind of a fun thing for me to do, and helps you with your health.
Do you have any recommendations, or maybe we can get into this a little bit later in the conversation, like resources of where people can go to learn about like herbs and spices? And I'll give you an example about turmeric, because I've heard that if you have turmeric, it's always great to pair that with black pepper because that helps to like ignite its benefits. But like, I, I don't know where I heard that or found it, but I'm sure I'm missing so much. And like, how do you know how to combine the information?
Well, I've gathered my knowledge, obviously partly through my education, but there are just certain people I've chosen to follow, and I won't throw those names out there. I'm happy to share them maybe outside of the conversation. But there are a couple of people that I follow who really seem to know their stuff, and a lot of it really is, thank goodness for the internet. A lot of it's just your own personal research, and it's not, you don't have to spend hours and hours. If you get a few good sources, you'll find some good information that will help you. Um, yeah, if I'm not coming to mind with any sort of one or two, but I have several that I've used. My Canadian School of Natural Nutrition is a great source. They had some herbal courses. Uh, I follow. I mentor with. She's a health coach, but she specializes in herbal supplements. So I sit on a call every week. So I have some personal connections into things like that that really help me.
Super helpful. And
Yeah,
so it's like not necessarily like, let's say I was having turmeric and never had the black pepper. I'm still getting benefits from the turmeric.
I believe so. Yes, I'm not an extremist one way or another.
Like the same thing as you were mentioning about like the fatty acids and the food, right? Like we know that there are some combinations of, mixing your fat with or like some nuts with a fruit because it's going to help with your digestion.
Exactly, and getting yes, the protein, the healthy fats, and the fiber. That combination is super important. And most of what I've talked about are foods to reduce inflammation as well. So that's why they're such a big part. The high fiber, the whole grains, the omega-3s, the probiotics, the antioxidants. These are all anti-inflammatory, and clearly with cancer, that's going to be first and foremost in your mind. So that's why it's even extra important to incorporate those into your diet.
What's your favorite meal to prepare? Like when you're cooking, can you give us some like examples of like, for me, it's like I love dinner. Dinner's like my favorite time because it's like end of the day, I'm winding down. If you enjoy cooking, it's kind of like almost like a ritual to prepare this like food for yourself. Do you have like a favorite meal or time of day, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks?
I'm a real foodie, so I like food any time of the day. I love grocery shopping. My friends think I'm nuts. I don't want anyone to do my grocery shopping. I'll go in and spend an hour and a half and just love it. And going to different stores, going to, my Whole Food stores, my regular grocery store. But I'm like you. I coast along. I make sure I get a decent breakfast and lunch in, but dinner's my big sort of favorite sit down and enjoy. And I don't have a favorite thing, but what I love to do are look up recipes with certain elements. So I'll want something with lentils and sweet potatoes and veggies and maybe a little bit of protein. And then I'll make up like a Thai curry flavored soup or stew, or something that I can kind of grab for that meal, but then also have in the freezer for later. Um, Another favorite is just to do either grilled or baked or pan fried fish. Uh, I spend a fair bit of time in the Caribbean, so they have wahoo and mahi. And I don't do anything fancy. I have a few herbs that I put on, sometimes just lemon and butter. Tuna is another one.
Love tuna.
And yeah, so I'll do a nice grill or baked or pan fried fish. And then veggie stir fry is my go-to. I just chop up every single kind of vegetable I have in the house and do something very basic again, maybe a honey Dijon flavoring, or maybe just balsamic vinegar and oil and salt and pepper. Um, you can fancy it up depending on how much time you want to spend doing it. Uh, I will often do a really nice salad with that. Sometimes a sweet potato baked or roasted. The other thing to do with veggies that is super easy is just put them all on a pan, drizzle a little bit of oil, salt, and pepper, or whatever herbs and spices you want, and roast them in the oven. And you can do that with cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, you name it. And it's so easy. The biggest part is chopping them up, but you just throw them in there and yeah.
We bought, again, with all of our kitchen appliances, also got an air fryer. And so I don't know if you use an air fryer at all in your cooking, but it's just so easy for me. At least, like, I can just put in like the vegetables, excuse me, and I'll do like the Brussels sprouts or the cauliflower or the broccoli rabe, and then just drizzle like balsamic glaze on top. And I'm just like, oh, so happy.
Yes, I don't own one, but I've had access to them, and the people who have them absolutely love them. Those and Instapots, the pressure cookers.
Oh, I've heard about those too. I don't have one either, but some people, they swear by them.
Yes, and for those of you who are in a busy lifestyle or have families you're cooking for, it just sounds like a great solution to being able to prepare meals in a healthy way quickly.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, right? It's like find something that's easy for your lifestyle that you're willing to use, right? And make it easy for yourself.
Right, for sure.
Do you have any additional recommendations for how we can keep our immune system healthy?
The one big one we already touched upon is stress, reducing stress. So again, that would be another whole conversation on how do you do that, because I get that question a lot. It's like, well,
And I like definitely stress eat. I'm like, I need chocolate, I need ice cream, I need pizza, I need comfort food.
yeah.
And it's mental because I was like, I deserve this. I was good all week and now it's Friday night and I'm going to like, have something that's just gonna make me feel good. I'm not gonna think twice about it.
And that's true of most of us. And I think you mentioned this earlier. You can't beat yourself up on, number one, why you're sick or why you got an illness, but you also have to cut yourself some slack. I'm not an extremist, and some people in my business are. They're like, you know what, you got to cut all that stuff out. Obviously, the more you adhere to a healthy eating and lifestyle regimen, the more likely you'll stay healthy. But I believe that everything can come in balance. So, yes, if you have your favorite vices that you need to have once in a while, don't stress yourself, because that causes stress.
Oh, absolutely.
Not
Yes.
letting yourself have the things that you love causes you stress. So, the other things that you have to look at are just your daily habits. What do you do when you get up in the morning? What do you do when you go to bed at night? What do you do when you're having a busy day? And building in just little tiny things to sort of go, hold on a second, breathe. And it might be breathing. It might be going on a walk. It might be just doing a head to toe sort of muscle relaxation exercise. There's all sorts of things you can do. And it's not time consuming, but it's just being mindful of, don't just, jump into bed, get on my phone, check my email, put my phone on the thing and go to sleep. Give yourself half an hour to decompress. Yeah, same in the morning. I mean, most of us, when I was working in the corporate world, I'm on a schedule. I got to get up. I want to work out. I want to have my smoothie. I want to do this. But if you can just allow yourself those few minutes, even 5 minutes in bed, to do a gratitude practice, to just breathe, take some deep breaths. Honestly, it's 5 minutes, and those sorts of things, if you can build them into your daily lifestyle, will help your stress level. None of us has come up with a magic formula to eliminate it. Or at least I haven't. But I think those things all really help. So stress is a biggie. This seems very simple, but adequate water intake. Most of us don't drink enough water. And you know what? I'm guilty of it some days too. You, again, have to form a habit, whether it's having your water bottle out. I love to do a glass of lemon water every morning. That just the digestion going. And it just reminds me, okay, get your water in today. And it doesn't always have to be just water, but because water can get a little tiresome. You can flavor it up with cucumber or lemon, but make sure you're getting hydration in all day long. No, don't wait till 8 o'clock and go, oh, shoot, I didn't have my water and stir. That doesn't work.
I notice when I intentionally drink a lot of water, like my skin looks better, my eyes look better, like I just look better. And it's not one of those things like you have to do it for 30 days. Like within like a couple days, I'm like, I have more energy. Like I notice that I function better.
It's water. Water is, I mean, we all know we're supposed to drink it, but it affects everything. Yes, it does affect your energy. It does affect your digestion. It affects everything about how you function. So yeah, it's if you did nothing else after this conversation, but pay attention to your water, that would make me happy. Um, some things to avoid. Again, I think they're pretty obvious, but I always mention trans fats, hydrogenated fats, artificial sweeteners, too much sugar. I'm a sugar junkie, so believe me, I understand. I wouldn't even say I have cravings. I just like certain things. I love my dark chocolate, but try to limit that at least. Don't make that a part of your daily regimen necessarily, or something that you feel like you should have all the time. Caffeine and alcohol are other ones that if you have your coffee in the morning, again, to me, that's not a big deal. If you want to cut caffeine out and it's not a big part of your enjoyment in the day, then great. But it's, I think, the people who are drinking multiple cups of coffee every single day. And again, it's not just your health. It affects your energy. It affects, gives you the highs and the lows, the things that will wreak havoc on your system if you have too much. And the same thing with alcohol. Alcohol has sugar. Alcohol is alcohol. So we all know we're not supposed to have alcohol, but I enjoy my glass of wine every once in a while as well. And again, to remove something like that would just make me sad and stressed. So
I'm Italian, so I'm right there with you, girl. I have to have my glass of red and I'm happy.
Again, everything in moderation, and what your limits are and what your level of tolerance is for removing things. So you do you. Another big one that I've learned over the years that I was never very good at is adequate sleep. And this goes along with the busy lifestyle, shortchanging yourself on your sleep habits, not just your length of sleep. That's a big one. Getting the 7-8 hours is certainly key. And again, everyone's different. We don't all need the same amount of sleep, but it's the quality of sleep. It's how you launch yourself into bedtime. What goes on in your bedroom at night? Do you have blue light? Is there noise? Is there not good airflow? There's so many things that you need to do to enhance your sleep quality, and it's so important to your health and your energy levels. And I do struggle with that as well. I'm not a great sleeper, but I do everything in my power to make sure that I'm in a good state of mind and that I get myself in the bedroom without all of the distractions, doing some gentle stretching, having a hot bath, having hot tea, just some breathing. Again, you don't have to spend an hour doing it, but be kind to yourself and let yourself let down gently. So the sleep is always high on my list as well. So that's just a bit of an overview of some of the other non-nutrition related things that I think are important.
I appreciate that. And to add, and feel free to comment, two things that came to mind as you were describing sleep and different rituals. I've learned, and again, maybe this is like the busy lifestyle. I go to bed typically around 9 o'clock. Like, then I like to wake up a little early as well. So like around 9 o'clock is like my cutoff time. I tell my friends I turn into a pumpkin and like I go to sleep. But then I'm also like listening to my body. There are some days where I'm just so exhausted. I'm like, you know what? It's 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm climbing into bed. There are other days where I'm like, you know what? I'm not actually really tired and I haven't fully like wound down yet from my busy day. And I'll stay up like reading a book, not necessarily on my screen, but like reading and staying up till like 10 or 10:30. And so I think this idea of like, oh, it's 9 o'clock, I must go to bed can also, I don't want to say it causes stress, but like we get into such habit versus actually listening to your body for when you're actually tired and ready to go to sleep. So in the example of, not being tired at 9, staying up until 10:30 or 11 is like, otherwise I'm just lying in bed, tossing and turning, and then I'm just getting frustrated and not getting a good quality of sleep. So that's something that I've started to just be more attuned with is like, is my body tired and when do I need to take a rest? I've also enabled like 10-minute power naps throughout my day. I notice that sometimes if I'm like in front of my computer or working on, right now we're recording a podcast and, it's like a lot of effort and energy. And so, after this, I might be like, well, you know what, let me take a moment to like step away before I turn into my next task. And just giving my mind some time to like unwind and shift gears a little bit has been I don't know if that's helpful or not for our listeners, but like those are some of the things and tactics that have really helped me like manage my day and my stress.
Yes, I think depending on the person, some people can't do cat naps. They lie there with their eyes wide open. But if your body's feeling that when you think, you know what, I feel like I could drop my head down and sleep, then yes, take those 10 minutes or even just sit quietly. And those breaks, that's part of the stress management and um, management of time is they don't have to be long, hour long tasks or activities. Just cut yourself those little pockets of time to treat yourself, to let down a little bit.
Absolutely. Especially after cancer, I know my body isn't the same, isn't responding the way it used to and bounce back as quickly. Yes, I am getting older, but I also like to say that's part of the chemo and then having like the chemo brain and the fog and all of these little things that, learning how to manage this new lifestyle is, I think, part of what we're talking about today too, is like that balance and that healthy normal.
Yeah, for sure. Your life has been turned upside down and now you have to at least get somewhat oriented again to be back on a path that makes you happy.
Cindy, is there any other like key nuggets that you need to share that you would like to share with our audience? We definitely want to have you back, and I would love to do, a deep dive through like a webinar or a workshop with our community. And you're just a wealth of knowledge. So this has been a really great conversation. But there's other things that we haven't covered in this short time together. I want to give you an opportunity to share.
Just one thing I will mention, I want people to know if they are interested in some free resources on my website. I do have, it's called the Cancer Conquering Nutrition Guide. And if you go on the website and click on the link, it will send me a message to say, hey, I'd like this. And you can download it yourself. It's very easy. And what it has are all of the categories of nutrients. So antioxidants, essential fatty acids, fiber, and it has the foods listed in each of those categories that you can get. So it's just a really quick reference to put on your fridge or put wherever, or when you're looking up recipes to say, you know what, I don't have a lot of that. So please feel free. I'm happy to send that to anyone who would like that. And I have other resources on my website that are free. I have a blog with all sorts of information. So if you're just looking for some good, healthy, free information, feel free to peruse.
Yeah. And what was the website again?
C4ws.ca.
Excellent. I will definitely add that in our show notes when we distribute the podcast so people can easily click on it and find your resources.
So after this conversation, I have to say I am definitely feeling a little bit hungry. So I am going to go prepare myself a very healthy snack. Cindy, it's been so great talking with you. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400+ programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.